part to the teamwork and devotion of these dedicated students, Ryan Austin, Audrey McClure, McLemore, Kate Paulson, Leah Sickman, June Beyond, I apologize, and Jacob Norris. Now, therefore, be it resolved by Mayor Ronnie Price of Andover, Kansas, with the concurrence of the City Council assembled in regular session at Andover, Kansas, this 9th day of March 2021, hereby proclaim Wednesday, March 10th, 2021, Andover Central High School Scholars Bowl Day and recognize the 2021 Andover Central High School Scholars Bowl team as state champions. Mr. Mayor has a couple pins for you. Good job, guys. And then this is your compliment.
Do you think
Smile.
that made up for everybody whose name's on here so that they can have them forever?
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, that'd be cool. Yeah, go ahead.
Do we still need to vote on the proclamation then? Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I move to authorize the mayor to sign a proclamation declaring Wednesday, March 10th, 2021 as Andover Central High School Scholars Bowl Day, recognizing them as state champions.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Are we, Troy brought this to my attention. Are we going to get something for these young folks to have a copy of that, or can we do that?
Sure, I mean, I can make copies or I can't really print new ones.
Right.
Until like tomorrow, but I could print new ones.
Yeah.
Have the mayor sign them if you'd like.
Is that all right,
And
JT?
Just so you know, we also will have one hanging in
The lobby.
foyer here at City Hall for
All right.
several months. I'm happy to do that if you'd like me to.
Yeah, we can do that. And then, Coach, I can swing them by the high school if you want, and then you can hand them out.
Thank you, Troy.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
piggybacking off of Troy's idea there, what about getting something on the city signs or something that says, home of 2021 state champs? I mean, I see it sometimes, I guess, when I'm driving to Kansas City. I see it in regards to state champions on football, but why couldn't we put something at least maybe on our signs or signage somewhere? I guess something to think about.
Something to think about. I will say you have award-winning high schools in this city. So if we put a sign up for every state championship between Andover High School and Andover Central, it might get a little busy. So we can certainly think about how to better publicly proclaim that in a signage way or some other way.
We'll have another one
Social
extra
media is
Thursday.
good as well.
So you,
Social
Social
media is
media.
good as well.
thanks.
Okay. Consent agenda, number 8.1 through 8.6.
Mr. Mayor,
Sir.
I move to approve the consent agenda, items 8.1 through 8.6 as presented.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Big 9.1. Justin Constantino will talk to us about vacation petition 620 East Highway 54 VA-2021-01.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is primarily a cleanup item. The subject property is located at the northwest corner of East Highway 54 Frontage Road and South Prairie Creek Road and lies within the US 54-400 corridor. It imposes a zoning setback based on the future freeway right-of-way. Two existing buildings are currently encroaching into that platted US 54 frontage setback. Staff supports the vacation of the platted setback along the East Highway 54 frontage road as the vacation clears up any existing nonconformance that is there currently. However, staff sees no reason to vacate the Prairie Creek Road setback on the recorded plat as it serves no greater purpose. As I mentioned before, this is primarily a cleanup item, and it was approved by the Planning Commission at their last meeting on February 16th, 2021. I'm available for questions.
Justin, so none of those other properties have any issues then?
No, so this is primarily affecting 1620, and on the plat itself, there's a setback along both Prairie Creek and 54, and there's currently buildings basically on top of that setback along 54.
Have we checked to see if it's a historical site? I'm just kidding, Justin. Any other questions?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I move to accept the recommendation of the Planning Commission and adopt an order vacating the platted 35-foot setback along the US 54 frontage road on the property generally located at 1620 East Highway 54, Andover, Kansas.
Any further discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Thank you, Justin.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Insurance renewal 10-1, ICI, April 2021 through April 2022. Dusty Davis was going to talk to us about this.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, council members, I'm Dusty Davis with ICI Insurance, and I'm here to present the 2021-22 insurance renewal for the city of Andover and the fire department. What I put together is basically executive summary, kind of highlighting some of the coverages and challenges that we're seeing in the insurance market, and a brief little history of what we've done, what the city has done since we've been insured with Travelers. Through that, in 2018, we actually went through a bid process and had 4 other options at this time to look at the insurance program for the city. At that time, we vetted all the companies, looked through the coverages, weighed all the options on that, and at that time, it was voted to move the coverage to Travelers. It was a significant savings, and since that time, I think it's been the right choice overall. The following January of 2019, we also moved the work comp to Travelers. That resulted in a significant savings of over $38,000, and that's kind of carried on for the last several years as well. I did present the work comp renewal back in January as well to show that. But we are seeing some challenges in the insurance industry. Part of that is just what's going on out there. This is a brief kind of thoughts on what we're seeing on here. Some of the natural disasters that are occurring out there. 2020, there were 16 weather disaster events that was more than $1 billion. Over the last 40 years, the average is about 6.6. So you can just see the amount of true extreme weather events that we're seeing out there on a more regular occurrence, and just really extreme coverages or extreme events on that part. This doesn't count the winter storm that hit the Midwest back last month, and how our companies are reacting to that as well. Another issue that we're seeing on here are property risk due to strikes, riots, business interruptions, things like that. We haven't seen things like that over the years. You throw in COVID, we're seeing lots of delays and an increased cost on lumber just with COVID. The next item we're seeing is social inflation. Because of some of these events and other things that we're seeing just higher claim cost overall. And this is really impacting the cost of claims out there. So it's hard for a company to say we have this liability event, and it could take several years for this to settle, how it might impact the rates going forward for the next several years. And then we've been seeing auto cost increase for the last several years just due to rising medical costs, changes in litigation, distracted driving, impaired driving, and higher technology advances in our vehicles. So overall, we're seeing a pretty good increase for the renewal this year. So one thing that we shared is the spreadsheet that shows last year to this year. And this is for the Travelers program. We also have a separate spreadsheet for the fire department. We have their coverage through BFIS. It's a specialty program that covers the fire equipment and trucks and has been a very good option for many years. So I can go in more detail kind of throughout this. Hopefully the executive summary explain some of the challenges that we're seeing and what our companies are doing, kind of reacting to these market conditions from a rate standpoint, higher deductibles, things like that. So sometimes we have to deliver bad news on this. Looking overall, part of this is also due to exposures. As the city increases their overall new buildings, gross expenditures, new vehicles, that did contribute to the overall rate increases that we're seeing the last several years. So keep that in mind as you continue to grow. You're going to have some of that impact as well on your insurance cost. But overall, you can see basically the insurance premium for the package for Travelers is $175,652, and the coverage for the Android Fire Department is $16,049. I'm happy to explain any additional coverages or answer any questions as well.
Mr. Mayor, I have a couple questions. So this went up about 24,000 from last year to this year?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Now, what is the percentage? Because I'm assuming that insurance probably has this, that, you know, they obviously they have some extra percentages for disasters that happen in a year. So obviously, you know, you're not going to use up all of your money that everybody's paying insurance in every year, right?
Correct.
Okay. So do they bank some of that money and instead of, you know, using it all on advertisement at football games? And
Yeah, they have huge surpluses. They're actually required to account for basically the premiums they have to have out there. They have as much money from a surplus standpoint to cover those if something does happen.
So
they also buy reinsurance, and that's one thing we've seen the last couple of years. Reinsurance cost has increased because of these claims.
Yeah, I do understand that, you know, construction costs have gone up because that's part of my business as well. But wouldn't some of those percentages that they factor in for every year kind of cover some of that?
They usually do. They usually have a 3% cost of inflation factor that we see on our policies. However, with COVID and something that's happened over the course of the last 12 months, that's something that they're reacting to on a quick basis. Yeah.
So those years that they don't use that extra surplus, they're banking it for years like 2020.
I believe so. Yes.
That's it.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I do have a question. Is it ever going to go down? I mean, is there anything we can do as a city to make it not as bad, you know, make it another increase next year? You know, I mean, if we don't have COVID this year kind of thing, what's the excuse for the increase next year kind of thing going to be?
Yeah, it's a great question. To tell you the truth, we do have market swings. We go through a soft market and hard market. Truthfully, we've been in a soft market. We're probably on the front end of this hard market, probably over the last 12 to 18 months. But we've been in a soft market for close to 7 or 8 years. And that's just kind of swings that we see on there. Usually what we see is a hard market only lasts 3 to 4 years, while a soft market can last 7 to 12 years, something like that. So it takes a few years for our companies to kind of catch up to where they think they need to be from a rate standpoint. And once they do that, they think this is where we need to be and things kind of settle down. But truthfully, from just overall, we're probably at the very beginning of a true kind of hard market that we haven't seen for a number of years. So to tag on that, there's certain things that you can do from a safety standpoint. And that's one thing, working with the city on their safety committee. That's something that we investigate all accidents, things like that. What happens? How can we make this not happen again? We learn from those mistakes and those investigations. Higher deductibles are another thing that our companies are looking to do, that basically they're a little more skin in the game for the city, and that does help on the rate sometimes. Other than that, just trying to do what you can from a loss perspective to prevent general liability claims, management claims, things like that. And that's just training and additional supervision. That's one thing that Travelers does have a large array of loss control resources that's available for the city, and some other things that ICI has brought to the city to help with some of those controls and measures in place. But it's kind of at the mercy of the market right now, and what I see is going on.
In those last 4 years that you said, I think you said 18, right?
Correct.
Has it stayed the same, or has it always gone up?
It's gone up a little bit. A lot of that is to the exposures that I mentioned, and some of that's due to rate. And we'll usually see anywhere from probably a 5% increase overall. And then you do have some more exposures based on additional payrolls, new cars. That could be another 5%. So almost like a trending about a 10% increase that we've seen on a regular basis.
So this safety, pardon me, this safety net, is that government mandated, or is that something they do themselves? They have to have so much in there in case of a COVID-19?
It's a requirement for all insurance companies to have a large surplus to.
So on the top side, is there also an amount that they, for example, they keep prices high forever and make the safety net huge? Is there anything keeping the insurance company? I'm just curious.
Yeah, one thing they do is basically they look at the claims are out there, and there's reserves set for claims. So each state kind of evaluates how each insurance company does. So they kind of give them a rating based on how that's done.
Okay.
So they just don't keep that money there. It's basically looked at and over AM Best ratings and things like that as well.
I think plus in a free market, it keeps the prices down naturally, right? Because they're competing with each other.
Mhm.
In theory.
Yeah, unless they all go up.
Collusion fun.
Yeah. I noticed that the hail and wind per occurrence doubled. Can you talk about that?
That's Travelers reacting to the large national disasters that are out there.
So that would affect Kansas as well?
That does affect Kansas. Travelers is a large carrier, a large national carrier, and I think they've seen some of this probably a little ahead of the time from the Midwest. But overall, the Midwest is probably one that you got coastal areas and you have the Midwest. And from a wind and hail standpoint, we're way up on the charts there for the weather maps.
Oh, we definitely
So this is something where they're reacting to that. We've actually seen, we have some other cities that have higher deductibles than the 50,000 that we have for the city of Andover. But you're looking at large property values. We got $35 million in property value spread out throughout the city. So that's something that is a per occurrence deductible. So if we have one wind or hailstorm that comes through, that is the amount the city will pay for the damage to the multiple roofs.
Mr. Mayor, I have just a question.
Go ahead, sir.
We keep talking about Travelers. Have we priced other companies, or is it always just Travelers?
No, part of this, I went back, but I've got some more history here. In 2000, prior to 2018, we were with EMC.
Okay.
They're a regional carrier. Their office is out of Wichita. And we probably had insurance with EMC for the previous 25 years, something like that. As the city started to grow, this is where we looked at Travelers as a different option. But we still have many of our cities with EMC. They're a great carrier. So it is an option that could be considered if needed to be.
Does the state of Kent, the insurance commission, or do they set commercial rates like what they do for residential? Do they? So if Travelers wants to take a price increase, they have to get it approved?
They do, correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I move to approve the 2021, 2022 property and liability insurance policies with Travelers and VFIS as outlined in the executive summary in the amount of $191,511.
Second?
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries 6-0. 11-1, sewer TV inspection van. And Rick,
Thanks, Dusty.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Rick Langer is going to talk to us about that. Thank you, Dusty.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. Sean Spear, the Assistant Manager for the Wastewater Department, and Brian Walls, the Manager of the Wastewater Department, demoed out 4, I think, different options in this sewer camera van. Let me back up. This is really 3 things in essence, just so you understand what we're talking about. We're talking about a van that has hardware and everything like that in it. Then we have camera equipment that goes into it, that goes down into the pipes. And then we have a software package that maps it and ties it into our asset management system so we can view it, recall it later. We can find stuff. In fact, we're going to take our old one out tomorrow where we had a backup and find out what's going on there. So that's when we talk about a sewer camera van. I just want to be clear what we're talking about. It's not just the van. There's 3 really separate components that go into this. It's pretty common to have it packaged together by several different vendors. We did get 4 bids for this. Sean Spears, and spent quite a bit of time after the guys at the sewer plant demoed out several. Our old one was purchased in 2000, so it's going on 21 years. Obviously, there's been a lot of advancements in the technology side of that. So they're pretty excited to take advantage of some of that and tie it in with our GIS a little better and so forth. But they did a nice job, I felt like, writing up the specifications. And we did get 4 bids. 2 of them didn't quite meet the specifications. The lowest bid, however, did meet all the specifications. And quite frankly, was one of the ones they were hoping to be the low bid because it's one of the ones they liked the most out of the demo side of the project. This is about a $219,750 purchase. It's one we don't do very often, as you can tell. The old one was 21 years old, so I would expect we get 15 to 20 years out of this purchase too. If anyone has any questions about it, I'd be more than happy to try to answer this.
You have any live videos that you can show?
Oh,
Not right now. But I tell you what, when we get the new one up, that's part of the problem with the other one. But when we get the new one up, we'll have a web link, and I'll forward you some links if you'd like.
There you go. Yeah, this seemed to be a pretty competitive bid, even though you said some people had missed some things. So that was very good.
I feel like they did a really good job writing their specifications. We just surprised that one of them did bid. We knew they probably wouldn't meet it, but they threw it out there just to see what we'd do.
Yeah.
So the camera's got 4 wheels on it, doesn't it?
Yes. In fact, the technology in the cameras have changed enough now. Sometimes you go through a manhole and you upsize in pipes or you downsize. Well, when you upsize, our old way, we had to pull it through, go back into that manhole and put different size wheels on it to raise it up so that it was up above and you could see in case there was any flow. The new one, it goes along, you get through that manhole and you can remotely raise it up. So the productivity will go a little faster on that. And it's got some gyroscopes and stuff like that to keep it from tipping and all that kind of fancy stuff nowadays that have come along.
I've heard from a very reliable source in 1990, they didn't have no wheels on them.
Yeah. There was some other ways of doing things, but
just throw it in and see where it lands.
push it through. Yeah, this will be the one we have is, by the way, I forgot to touch on that, but we are in conversations with one city, smaller city around, pretty small city, that may be inquired about purchasing ours. We'll see how that works. It's kind of hard to market a 21-year-old sewer camera truck out there. And the trade-in that we talked to these companies about getting trade-in, none of them really were interested in it. So we'll discuss that with them and see what they think. And if they're willing to offer anything for it, then we'll bring that back to you if that's the way, that we possibly go with that. We won't keep it though.
Could we do their system for them for a price? Since it's a small city?
They're a little ways away from us. And I think what they have a company that does it for a price now. And I think what they want is the ability to be able to go do it. Because what happens sometimes you need these, it's not Monday at 8:30 in the morning, it's 10 o'clock at night or something. You need to do this. So I think they would like to have it for emergency response times, frames, and so forth like that. So I think they're wanting to get this into their own wheelhouse. They just don't have, like we do, a full-on asset on our management system, on our collection system tied in with our GIS. And that's where some of our hang up is. And then obviously the new camera systems have a lot of added benefits, but for somebody who doesn't have one, it's probably fine for them.
Yeah.
I believe there was a time when we paid contract laborers to do ours because our equipment was so antiquated. We did the best we could with what we had, but I believe we had contract labor come in and do the lion's share at one point, but I'm not positive.
Yeah. The same city contracts out to have their lines cleaned for them too, and so forth.
Rick, is the software on this, is it going to be upgradable?
Yes. Yes.
It's a pretty cool looking truck as well. If you turn to the last 4 sheets of the packet, it shows the truck. It's kind of cool. Almost looks like a taco truck.
Yeah, this one's a lot smaller. Our old one is more of a big box truck looking thing. The technology made it to where we can put it into a smaller package.
When it's not in use for this,
Yeah,
we use
won't be
taco
selling
truck.
tacos out of that.
Yeah, totally.
All right.
Special sauce.
Yeah. Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to accept the bid for Mayor's Equipment and Supply LLC out of Goddard, Kansas for the purchase of the sewer TV inspection van and related equipment at the cost of $219,750.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, motion carries 6-0. Redbud Trail Project, bid award for Redbud Trail Restaurant. And again, Rick will talk to us about that.
So the previous item, we got really good bids. This item is our second round and second try. We did get more bidders this time. One of the bidders was the original bidder, and if you add in the alternate, which was in the original bid the first time, you'll notice, well, you may notice, but their price even went up. We went out, we talked to some contractors. I thought we had 5 that was going to give bids. 3 actually submitted it. 2 of them told me in the last week products went up in cost. PVC went up quite a bit because everybody's replacing all their PVC lines in Texas apparently. Lumber's gone up, and it's just products are going up. So even in the 2 weeks it took us to get the bid out, the price went up. Apparently this is what it cost. I mean, we bid it twice. I mean, we did get a lower bid this time, but it's still not where we need it to be. So we talked internally in staff, and we started a conversation with the Kansas Department of Wildlife Parks about seeing if we can get more grant money. Because if you may have noticed in here, we did have a grant for $26,000 for part of this. And we're hoping that maybe they have somebody that didn't do their project that turned the money back, or we don't know what the process is. We're just starting it, but we're going to go back and see if we can get some money to do this. But at this point, our recommendation is to reject all bids.
Mr. Mayor, I have a question and maybe just a discussion as well. Construction costs have gone up quite a bit, and I've kind of been keeping up with them in just my industry. And since July, they've gone up 30% to date, and they're still projected to go up another 12 until midsummer when prices are supposed to level out. That's what the projection is. If we think we're going to get more money out of this, do we just want to, instead of rejecting the bids, and because I mean, obviously these people know what they bid against each other, could we just hold the bids for a later date for 60 or 90 days?
We can only hold it for 30 days. We usually bid it that way because if we bid it out for 60 days, especially in this climate, all those bidders would have raised their bids even higher because,
Yeah.
you know, I don't think the low bid, he's not going to want to honor that price. He might come back and say, I can do it for that price later. But I suspect, as you probably can suspect, if we ask him what the price would be in another 60 days, it's probably going to be higher, or 90 days. I don't want to mislead you. I don't know that we expect to get more money. I think it's more like we're hoping to get more money.
And where's the location of this restroom proposed, I guess?
Okay, so it's on, I believe it's Main and the Redbud Trail. There is a little park there that we call Redbud Trail
Yeah,
Park.
yeah.
And we have a shelter there. It's gonna be right there with it.
I will remind you, and I don't know if this was in here or not, we do have until September of 2024 to utilize the grant that we were given. So that's to Rick's point. We're going to ask if we can apply for a supplemental grant that could go towards the same project in addition. If we need to reject the money we've been awarded and take a risk that we get a bigger award, what exactly that looks like. But we aren't necessarily rejecting the grant money tonight. We've got some time still before we would need to do that.
I guess that was kind of the question I was thinking. And we're, as far as the governing body, staff, and the city of Andover, where's this lie on our priority of things to do, you know?
Well, obviously, as the Public Works Director and looking at the Parks Department funding, I think there is some limit to how much money out of that fund do we want to spend to put a restroom in that park. Obviously, it makes it a lot easier if we're getting some outside funding for that. I don't want to speak out of turn. I don't want to contradict Jenny, but it would be my hopes that we can get more grant money and not have to divert as much park funding to go towards that. And so I guess what I'm saying in short is that you guys will have to ultimately make a decision. How much are you willing to spend for a restroom or a bathroom in that park? But I know what other things can be done, and you got to weigh that cost, right? Are you going to spend it here? Are you going to do it somewhere else in the park? And we actually happen to have ongoing right now a park master plan that may say something to that effect. One of the other things we discussed, possibly down the road, if the funding falls through, or we can't do it there for whatever reason, you know, when we develop 13th Street, maybe there's a potential to do something there if we redevelop 13th Street Park or something along that lines with that plan.
So this could just be an add-on to the park master plan and 13th Street Park. You know, obviously it's not at 13th Street Park, but it can be part of that funding for it to add a bathroom on the Redbud Trail.
I think there's a lot of options we have to address and see, but I think the first thing is I would like staff time to go back and discuss this with the granting agency and see what we can do. Maybe they got a great answer for us. I don't want to mislead you and think we know it's coming. I think it's not easy to get grants, obviously. So, but sometimes you get lucky and you knock on the door at the right time.
I was just going to say further, I think over the years, there's been a lot of comment by the governing body at the expense of the restrooms here in this park. And I will tell you that there are 7 toilets in that male, female, and family bathroom. This is a unisex, 1 toilet, 1 sink bathroom. You got a better deal with your F5 tornado shelter here in this park for $500,000 than you would get for $100,000 for a unisex, 1 whole bathroom that is not a FEMA shelter. So when you look at that, it seems hard to justify. If that threshold was too high, you got a lot more for that than you would be at this. And so I think the staff is just a little blown away at the cost, and everything else Rick said, I totally agree. It's weighing what your priorities are. This came in much higher. When we submitted the grant, we thought we would pay the same $3,250 already did. We put that money in the budget in case we didn't get the grant. We thought if we got the grant that 3,250 would take care of it for the city. So to then think that maybe instead we'd need to pay 70,000 for a bathroom, I mean, that's significant higher than what we anticipated.
And I think it's safe to say that the restroom will be used by people coming into town, not people that live in town. So we have to, I mean, of course, we want them to have somewhere to go, but I'm just saying, keep it real. They're coming in and turn around and going back. So it's something to think about.
It's big over in Europe, pay toilets.
I'm sorry.
I said a pay toilet.
Those
A
are
lot of
pretty
quarters.
gross.
All right.
Could plant a circle of trees.
Well, I mean, I'm just trying to think, Mr. Mayor, to your point, sorry. You know, I mean, I think people would love a bathroom, right? That live in town, because I was just trying to think like your next viable public option is going to be the gas stations on 21st Street, really, at that location. Am I right, Rick, as far as?
Well,
Or 13th Street Park, right?
13th Street Park has a seasonal bathroom. It does get winterized in the winter and shut down during the winter, but it does have a seasonal. One thing we can do in the meantime, until we get something addressed or changed, is possibly put some signage up that says restroom and point them down to that. Because some may not understand or know when they go down 13th Street Park. That's a thought I did have the other day when I was thinking about this, trying to digest what we were going to do with this.
And is it too early to tell if we could use that grant money for an expansion on 13th? Is that too early to tell in the definition maybe of the grant?
I think that's unlikely. I mean, you apply for a pretty specific project. I mean, we had studies on gastrointestinal issues and why it's important to have a bathroom on a trail. So it's pretty specific to that location. We had to have aerials, maps to show where this was. And a lot of that justification was just what you're saying. If you're going on a 10-mile run or a 15-mile bike ride, you may not be thinking, I'm going to get off here and go at the park. I mean, if it happens, you're going to need to go when you need to go. So that was the idea of having it right there on the trail. And it was award winning. It was a great idea. Just not enough award winning.
Rick, was this the single building that you would just plop on to the concrete bathroom, or is this a built restroom?
This is a built restroom. The intent was, as you may recall, we spent $47,000 building a nice shelter. This thing was going to be 10 feet away from it. So it was built to mimic that. They had split face stone to add some cost, but it was to match. We didn't want something that looked like an old outhouse built next door to a nice shelter that was just built in the last year and a half or two.
Could we utilize the ones that Daniel was talking about for possibly the south side of the park? Since it's just an all one big, huge, it comes in one big building already.
We have talked about that. They don't, in fact, some of those vendors had reached out to us when they saw we were bidding this, because we do post this on our website. The problem with that is that they kind of have some pretty unique designs, and they're generally designed for not running water, but tanked systems, and we pump them out. We are looking into seeing if there's some other options, again, to get them to build it to look like and match with the architecture that's already on the site would drive that cost up. And I don't think we could do it for much cheaper, to be honest. If we wanted to go away from the architecture completely and go to something that's more state park looking, where it's got the precast concrete with the roof on it and so forth, an open air type of restroom, you could probably make it work in that ballpark, but I don't think it probably wouldn't qualify for the grant based on what we submitted to the grant. We'd have to check to see on that. But to add running water and so forth to them, I think I'm finding or feeling like we're going to be at least even if you go with the package deal, you're probably going to be in the $50,000 to $60,000 range by the time you ship it in and everything.
A lot of money for a bathroom.
Tell me about it.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I move to reject all submitted bids for the Redbud Trail Park restroom project.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries 6-0. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. Member items, anyone?
I have at least one conversation. I know we're probably several years away from the 400 design coming through Andover. And we've had a walking overpass on our thoughts for a long time. And obviously at Andover Road and 400 is not a great location to walk across. A newer intersection over at Yorktown, do you think that would be possible for us to do anything that you can walk across that area?
So the
So,
current flyover or walkover is in between those two.
right, but this would just be temporary. So this would just be at the current Yorktown location, just for people to walk from,
If I recall, we can't put a crosswalk on 54 with the number of lanes, or I say 54, US 400 or
Yeah.
whatever.
was that accurate?
That's my understanding as well, but we can verify that too. It's been a while since we've actually investigated that, but I know we have in the past 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
But we can verify that. And to answer your question, but yet in the WAMPO projects that the city currently has programmed and advocates for is that pedestrian crossing. It's currently, I think, we were programmed to begin engineering that in 2023 or 2024. Now, those projects are consistently shuffling, as Councilmember Tabor can probably explain in more detail, but how that works. But it's increasingly been part of a larger conversation as it relates. Is that an appropriate use of money for a metropolitan planning organization, knowing full well that it might be obsolete with the freeway project? So I know Les, your director of community development, still advocating for that project. Timing is tricky.
Yeah.
But to answer your question about an interim improvement, from a built perspective, probably not a high chance, but we can kind of investigate any potential options that may be out there.
Be a nice option for at least the meantime to be able to cross and tie our, north and south together. I see people walking across Andover and 400 all the time. It's not very safe at that location. There's so many people coming in and out. But could it be possible at Yorktown? I don't know. It's just something I was thinking about.
I'll ask a question with Mr. Warren or Councilman Warrington here. Can we make the stoplights more sensitive to bicycles? My son and I have ridden to the Y, and until a car pulls up there on Yorktown, that light never changes. And I get that, they don't want pedestrians to cross, but as a bicycle, we have every right to go on the road, but it doesn't sense a bicycle whatsoever.
Yeah, we can have the director of public works and utilities investigate that for us a little
Sometimes doesn't censor cars either.
It don't do, in fact, they don't do motorcycles. And if you sit through a light on a motorcycle, there is stipulations where you can take off. But just so you know, if you do a circle right there, it will set off the light.
And I think we've already done some fine tuning to the sensors at that intersection, so we can visit that too.
Where the little rectangle cut is, you go across it.
So you're crossing 400 probably at that location because it's safer. So that's what I was kind of thinking. I see people cross that as well, and let's try something. At least let's ask. especially since the sensors are on for so long.
Yeah, we'll do some homework.
I wasn't being smart aleck. I'm serious. I know. I'm just making sure you know.
You're right. I mean, you have to.
Yeah, I mean, that's not the answer you wanted to hear, but I just didn't want you sitting there until you needed a haircut, which is never a problem for me.
It's not a problem for me.
So, all right. Any other member items? That's a good point, though. It's sad that it's going to be so long before we can do that, but it would be highly effective.
Mhm.
You know, they're talking about killing that project potentially because if they're going to expand or more quickly expand US 400 here, might be a couple more years before that happens. But then, like right now, it's $3.6 million for that bridge to go over for bicycle pedestrians, which is a lot. But we just talked about how the price of all materials have went up 30%. So I doubt that's a valid number anymore even, which by the way, that might mess up all of our future projects with WAMPO for everybody, but it's different.
Well, I mean, this year they went up quite a bit only because of COVID and lack of people working at the time, and supply and demand is the real reason why that went up.
Do you think they would actually lower the prices of products?
No, nothing goes back down.
Right.
Not even insurance.
Thank you, Ron.
Rick, if didn't you say now? We've talked about a little bit about road construction and cost therein. They are a little bit on the down slope, aren't they? Right now, is that what we were talking about? Or correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, for whatever reason, in Andover alone, in our last bid for our maintenance project, they went down even from 4 years ago. I will caution you that there was a bidding war going on between two particular contractors in Andover that I'm not real sure, because we did look at the Wichita bids on similar work, and ours seemed to be lower, which they were bidding more work. So usually that's an indication you get a better price. So I'm not really sure, but I'm real happy about it. But I am not optimistic that that's long-term, because I know, for example, their cost for milling went down, or what we pay for milling went down on this last project. And there is no material cost in that. It is equipment and labor, and neither one of those have gone down in price, or fuel, since those 4 years. So what has happened is somebody's just either eating, or they're lowering their profit sincerely amount. So I suspect that that's not a long-term trend that we're going to see.
All right. But an opportunity for us right now, then. Huh?
Yes, an opportunity we plan on taking advantage of.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else?
I just want to say thanks to the vaccinators. Chief Keller, I know his wife volunteered today, and I believe Chief Russell was there this morning at the vaccination. So maybe when it comes around to you, Chief Russell, you can maybe give us the final numbers, possibly, on how many we vaccinated, or Jenny, if you got, Chief Russell's already up going to the microphone. So
Yeah, we can definitely report on that. I know today it was approximately 290.
Wow.
So nearly 300. They had a morning and afternoon session. Morning were all first doses, afternoon were all second doses, and it went swimmingly. Tons of volunteer help. There's people from the entire community, meaning the surrounding area, that are there helping out. So it's a neat deal.
great, good job. Kudos to Chief. I think Roosevelt was
He's the mastermind.
mastermind behind the thing. So I participated in a couple clinics, or at least one clinic right now, and then another one in a week. So it's definitely interesting to see how the variety of them work. So, and the logistics of it. So that's all I have.
I happened to look today on the Butler County COVID website. We have a single case in Andover. One.
It's awesome. Yeah, it's great.
I had a sports personality talking today about in LA about how fluid that they're running people through getting their vaccination. And that was good to hear that they're getting them in and out, and it was quite a show, quite a So if California can do it and the bigger cities, then maybe we'll get through this sooner rather than later.
Mr. Mayor, I also want to say congrats to the Andover Central girls basketball team.
Oh, yeah.
They won sub-state finals last night, and a very impressive basketball game. Very close the entire time. And our team was 23-0 versus a 19-3 team. And probably the two top teams in state played each other before state. So it was a close game. And so this Thursday, they start the state championship game in Emporia. And so we'll just like to give them thumbs up, and hopefully they'll do well in that and take us to Saturday for the championship game.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Make a motion to adjourn? I'm not making, I closed my thing. Never mind, I'm not even gonna do it. Somebody else, please.
We need a motion to recess now. I do not know, do we need to have Troy go as far as to withdraw that motion? Yes. If
Pardon
you
me?
would please withdraw that motion, Troy.
Oh, yeah, I'd withdraw that motion.
Thank you, Troy.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I move to recess the city council meeting to March 25th, 2021 at 6 PM for a strategic planning meeting to be held in the city council chambers at City Hall, 1609 East Central.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Recess. Carries.
Yeah. I was so embarrassed that I didn't. I was like, a little embarrassed. What I should have done is just did one of these little. I go, just hide.
No, yeah, no, they were.
So